What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another edition of Dangle Bet Celly, powered by FTM Bets, right here on Game Plus Network, presented by PointsBet Canada. Chris Meaney and the Eric Young here with you. We are just over 24 hours away until the Stanley Cup Finals get underway. And again, it is the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup Finals for the third straight year. Last team to go to the finals 3 straight years, the Edmonton Oilers. We've seen several teams, Eric, do this, but the most recent teams, of course, the Edmonton Oilers, the New York Islanders, the Philadelphia Flyers, the Montreal Canadiens. We've seen some teams do it 3 years in a row. Corey Perry in the Stanley Cup Finals for the third straight year. He does not have a ring in each of the last 2 years. We'll see if he can get one this time around. EY, what's up, man? Lots to get to here today. We're going to preview Game 1. We got some great guests lined up for the next couple of episodes. A little bit later on in the Stanley Cup Finals, we are going to dive into off-season rankings. Way too early fantasy hockey rankings for next season because we're both psychos here on this show. We do see some people hanging out with us who I think we can call psychos as well. And we will dive into maybe some unrestricted free agents. Lots happening in the NHL, even through the Stanley Cup playoffs. What's up, dude? How are you?
Yeah, doing good, man. Can you remember? Maybe it's just because I've been so into this season, but these are two mega powers, right?
Yes.
There's no underdog. There's no, this team, the goalie got really
Cinderella
hot. They shouldn't
run.
be here.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure at the start of the year, we could rewind the tape. I said Tampa, Colorado would be in the finals. That's not what I wanted to happen. I didn't bet on it because the odds were terrible.
There's no value.
There's no value at all. But, I think we all kind of saw this coming.
I think we saw it coming, over the past couple of years, eventually, right? This was my Stanley Cup final 2 years ago, right?
Wow.
When the Avs were on the upswing. Makar was just fresh. We knew about McKinnon and Landeskog and Rantanen, and these guys were just on the upswing. I think they had just acquired Nazem Kadri. I love that deal when they flipped Barry and they got Kadri the other way to give them a solid second line center. And you see the bracket there. You're right. There was really, let's check that up one more time, George, and kind of just roll through. Over to the left side, Avs took care of the Preds shorthanded pretty easily. The Minnesota-St. Louis series was a bit of a coin flip. It was a tough one to call, and the Blues took care of Minnesota in 6. Calgary struggled against Dallas. It took 7, but they did dominate most of the games that they played against the Stars. Jake Ottinger was fantastic. The Oilers had their moments, like we talked about in that opening series, that we weren't really sold on their goaltending. We loved the Kings, and that series went 7. So we could have seen a couple upsets on that left side. Certainly Dallas and LA could have gotten by. On the right side, took a little bit for Florida to find their footing in the first round. Of course, the Leafs and the Lightning, we knew that one was going to be super tight. The Leafs were just on the wrong side of that one again in Game 7 on home ice. Carolina and Boston, that was one that I was completely on the wrong side of. Although it went 7, I did like the Bruins in that series, and it was just the home team won every single game. And then the Rangers and the Penguins in there. I think we were both on the Rangers, but we sweated it out for sure, right? Pittsburgh was up 3-1 in that series. Sidney Crosby did not play, I think, in Game 5, and he missed one game, but I think that's kind of what got the Rangers going in that one. But really, no upsets, no significant upsets. Edmonton over Calgary is not really an upset. Stuff in the second round that we saw on the right side of the bracket. The defending Stanley Cup champs, I guess, sweeping Florida. I think that's not an upset, but that was certainly surprising that they swept Florida and the Panthers only had 3 goals in 4 games. But you're right. It's a pretty chalky Stanley Cup final. Like you said off the top, we don't typically bet those sort of things. There's not a lot of value to be had. And, when I mentioned it a couple years ago as my bracket, at that point, both teams weren't Cup favorites. It was before the Lightning hadn't got over the hump yet, right? They had that sweep against Columbus. They just still hadn't, found their footing. We always say on this show, you have to learn how to lose before you learn how to win. I think we're seeing that with both teams. We saw it with Tampa a couple years ago. Now we're seeing it here with Colorado. But I don't know, off the top of your head, do you remember a Stanley Cup Finals where the two favorites went all the way? Was it Pittsburgh and Detroit back in the day when they went back to back? That may have been it, man.
And that's a long time ago, man. It's, that to me is probably as close as this is going to get. I think we're going to have one of the most memorable finals in a long time. I could be completely wrong. Tampa just walks them 4 straight, and Colorado's goaltending cost them, and I look like an idiot. But I believe that this is going to be exciting. I believe this is going to be punch, counter punch, back and forth. I don't know if there's going to be a ton of goals scored, but I think it will be really, really high octane hockey for pure hockey people, and I think I would consider myself one of those. The hockey is going to be incredible.
Was there anything you wanted to add from the Rangers and Lightning? I mean, just that the Lightning, I felt, played absolutely perfect in the last 3 or 4 games.
It shows in sports, and especially in hockey, is like you just said, you got to learn to lose before you can win. The New York Rangers were almost up 3-0, and
a 2-0 lead in Game 3.
The Tampa Bay Lightning didn't show panic for a millisecond.
Yeah, I know.
Just not a worry in the world. Just sticking to how they play, doing their thing. They're not defensive, but they're not super aggressive. They just, I do believe, and I've read this somewhere, and I can't remember who talked about it. It's someone for Tampa Bay talking that there's rules, like certain rules depending on the game, depending on the score. Like if we're up 2 goals, there's no D-to-D passes, no passes over 2 lines, there's all these mini rules that John Cooper has installed with this group and for this team, and they stick to it and they play it, and it's obviously working for them. And then the ultimate common denominator in the back in the goalie is the best goalie in the world, Andrei Vasilevskiy. This season, Shesterkin, had the best season as a goaltender, but the best goalie in the world is Andrei Vasilevskiy, and you've got to beat him to prove me wrong. And nobody's done that yet. I mean, he was not bad, but he was not good in the Toronto series. And I think that has a lot to do with the Toronto firepower. He was an 835 or 833 goalie in that series, and since then has not looked back. He's been unbelievable.
Yeah, he has been fantastic. I'm just taking a look at some of his 5-on-5 numbers here, according to Natural Stat Trick. So, I mean, he's at 5-on-5. He's got a 1.18 goals against average, a 7.27 goals saved above average, which is the second best behind the goalie he just played against in Igor Shesterkin, who was fantastic in his own right. I mean, the guy had, this is the difference between the two teams at 5-on-5. Igor Shesterkin faced 196 high danger shot attempts at 5-on-5 in the playoffs. 196. Vasilevskiy faced 84. 84. When we talked about the Tampa Bay Lightning, we earlier a few minutes ago when we just mentioned the Lightning when they played against Columbus and they got swept. They were loose. That season they won 60 some odd games. It was one of the best seasons of all time. They could score up and down with anyone. It kind of reminded me of the Florida Panthers heading into this season. Offensively, they were amazing. We knew that Vasilevskiy was good, but they played a little loose. Their 5-on-5 play wasn't great, and they just got into trouble. And then they realized, hey, they added some pieces in the offseason, like Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrow, and they added they traded some top picks, 2 first-round picks for those guys to get a little grittier, tougher to play against, guys that could kill penalties, just got, better in their bottom 6, and they improved 5-on-5. There are a couple things that stand out to me with Cooper. In one playoff run, he just straight up benched Kucherov just for not back-checking or lazy behind the back pass, and he didn't back-check, and that was it. I mean, and then we've seen a different Kucherov for the most part. Sometimes there's a little bit of laziness in his game, I think. He's super skilled, but you've seen some adjustments in his game, and that's credit to Cooper. This team is so different this year. I mean, they lost Braden Point. They didn't have Braden Point for 75% of that Game 7 against the Leafs. They didn't have Braden Point against the Panthers. They haven't had Braden Point. Braden Point got hurt against the Leafs, right? Yes. Yeah. And they haven't seen him since. One of their best
players.
Yes. A guy who's been right there with Kucherov in the playoff scoring in the past couple of years. Stamkos has had a terrific year, but Braden Point has been kind of their backbone over the past couple of years offensively and what he's done all over the ice. And they've done it without him. And I feel like they've just kind of changed their style. They've learned how to play 5-on-5, and that's super scary. I mean, we're going to break down the series But ultimately, I think we can both agree why Tampa has the edge in goal. Colorado's really good 5-5 as well, but this is a different beast the Avs are going to face here.
I mean, Tampa is insane, right? Like it's a master class of GMing. It's a master class in coaching. And the fact that neither the GM or the coach was nominated for the coach or the GM award it's blasphemy. I mean, they're quite possibly going to win their third Stanley Cup in a row. This has never been done in the salary cap era, ever. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we'll ever see it again. It's almost impossible to do that. Think about the team. I mean, yes, there's a bunch of core players from the first cup they won, but think about how many of those players are gone and how many new players they have on the team. It has a lot to do with the players, but in the end, it comes down to the GM. Like, I know that you thought it. I'm pretty sure. I know I thought it when they spent that price to get Barclay Goodrow. I almost had a heart attack. I was like,
"That's the first
when is this going to end? Spending this kind of capital on a middle of the road player, a replacement level player. Barclay Goodrow is an unbelievable player, and I would want him on my team. But giving up what they gave up seemed like stupidity, and we were wrong. I was wrong. You were wrong.
Well,
everyone was wrong.
Yeah, everyone
except for Tampa Bay.
I really liked the Blake Coleman addition at the time, but I was also thinking, what? Really? A first-round pick for this guy?
It's crazy.
But, I mean, last year I thought the difference, certainly against the Habs in the finals, but I also thought against the Islanders in the third round was that line, like Yanni Gourde and Goudreau and then Coleman. And now to think that trio is just straight up gone. Like, see you later. They lost all three of them in the offseason. And they went through moments where it kind of just felt like they knew ultimately, like, it's a long season, 2 long off seasons. Just get to the playoffs. Like, sure, they want home ice, but just get to the playoffs and it'll be fine. They got to the deadline and then they added some guys like, Nick Paul, Brendan Hagel.
Who was leading the team in scoring early in the playoffs.
And ice time at moments.
Was playing 20-something minutes, a guy that wasn't on the team.
Yeah, and he was a real factor, I noticed, against Florida, certainly against the Leafs, and I think in the Game 7 he had a couple goals. One of the games I remember he stood out, he had a couple goals. I think it actually was Game 7 where he scored twice. But just you're seeing our guy Anthony Cirelli a little bit, what he can do defensively, right? Going up against top dogs, throughout the playoffs and getting a lot of ice time as well, and just shutting down opposing centers and opposing players at 5-5 play. It's very, very impressive what the Tampa Bay Lightning are doing here. We want to say hello to the crew. Adam Rankamp in the house. Let's go, boys. I already placed my first bet of the series. He says this morning under 6.5 minus 130. Really, I think Colorado will have a little bit of a slow start with 9 days off, and the best goalie in the world is on the other side when they do figure it out. Yeah, this one opened up at 6.5, juiced a little bit to minus 130. I don't hate that. I think we will see some goals in the series. We will see some games that I think open up just a little bit, but ultimately, I mean, the best player in the series is Andrei Vasilevskiy, and you and I chatted when the Tampa Bay Lightning were down 2-1, and we said if you want to get in on Tampa, they're 5-1 now. Andrei Vasilevskiy is $8.50 to win the Conn Smythe, and we'll bring up the odds in a little bit, and those odds are no longer around anymore. He says he's also looking at Steven Stamkos, head-to-head goals against Landeskog, minus 115 for Stamkos, and then Dustin is in the house. Chafee, what's up, man? Tampa to win the series, plus 160. Let's roll 3-peat. A couple things before we give our picks, and we'll dive into game 1. We got some goal leader stuff. We got some point leader stuff from PointsBet. They're running a special right now for those north of the border. PointsBet.ca. We have a link inside the description of this video. And as you see there, a $750 welcome offer. Sign up today and receive a $50 free bet. Plus, you make a deposit and get 7 days of bets and get up to $700. Win or lose, place a bet, and they've got you covered over at pointsbet.ca. So some cool stuff happening there for those in Ontario. And Speaking of Ontario, I did want to ask you this because it is going around and some of my Leaf buddies see it as well. Do you take any satisfaction into the Leafs losing to the team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals in each of their last 3 playoff appearances? Boston in 2019, the Habs last year, and then this year with Tampa. Is that something that the Leafs can say, you know what, we're right there? We are. Yes, we haven't won a playoff series, but at the same time, we're losing to the team that goes to the finals.
Yeah, I think it's something to think about for sure. I mean, it doesn't relieve the sting of not making it in the first round with, on paper, one of the best teams that we've seen in the NHL skill-wise in the last 20 years. I mean, having Marner, Matthews, and Tavares, maybe not as much Tavares now, but, over the last 2 or 3 years, on one team, it is insane. And the fact that they haven't got out of the first round is even more insane. You can hang your hat on, and I will as a Maple Leafs fan since I was 3 and still follow the team religiously. I mean, I follow all the teams religiously. I'm an insane person, but that's besides the fact. Repping my bench clears Chicago Blackhawks jerseys while I was in Chicago this past weekend. All my Nashville buddies just madder than hornet sending me hate messages that I'm wearing a Blackhawks jersey. And look, I love all teams, some more than others, but I love all teams. Yeah. And when I was in Chicago, I'm going to wear my Chicago jerseys, both. So more hate messages from my buddies coming. But as far as Toronto losing to Tampa and losing to the team that's going to play, I'm feeling the same way about the Nashville Predators. The Nashville Predators, I said that this is going to be a playoff team. I said that this is going to be a hard team to beat. Tell me a team that gave the Colorado Avalanche more of a problem than the Predators with their AHL goalie. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Anyone that wants to make fun of me and the Predators? No. No.
Yeah, I mean, they made quick work of the Oilers.
Quick work. I mean, St. Louis won a game, but that was completely Bennington. It had nothing to do with St. Louis. Yeah. The team that gave the Colorado Avalanche the most difficulty in this postseason was the Nashville Predators. I believe that. Look, at my heart wants Colorado to win. I think that I want them to win the Stanley Cup. But my brain, and from what I know about hockey, is saying we're going to win this history, and Tampa Bay is probably going to win the Stanley Cup. The best player on the ice is playing goal for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And right now, I think Kemper's going to play, but he's not in Vasilevsky's league. Franchot certainly isn't in his league. It was a fun story. He came in, they all chained in Frankie, and then he let in a bunch of goals the next game. So, yeah, I mean, my technical hockey brain says Tampa's going to win. My heart and my jersey say I want Colorado to win. Most of all, I want there to be 7 games because that means hockey's almost done, and I'll slide into a deep depression for probably about 24 hours, and then I'll switch over to football.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's we've been doing some football stuff on Main Street, some team previews, but still in hockey mode. And you shortchanged the Blues a little bit. Adam's Blues, he said Blues played them tougher, but we agree to disagree. They won 2 games. They won 1 game in overtime, but ultimately the Preds did hang around with them in the opening round. They just did not get the goaltending. There were some, I'm just looking back. I mean, it just feels like such a long time ago when these two teams played. Early May, right? So, I mean, there's some big 7-2, 7-3, 5-3. So even though it was a sweep and you had the 2-1 overtime session in there as well, it's hard to kind of really judge Nashville's play without UC Saros. Mark's in the house. Go Avs, go EY. Vladimir's in the house as well. Nashville always gave the other team a run for their money because if they lose big, they hit... they throw their body around, is what he was saying there in their opponent. And then also a comment from Vladimir earlier that he said his bet early in the playoffs was McKinnon for Conn Smythe, but he had to cash it out. Still a good profit. It feels that Makar gets Conn Smythe if the Avs win, and that is a big if. You know, I think a lot of people, I'm seeing a lot of people really just say that the Avs are going to win this series pretty easily, like 5 or...
No way.
I just don't see it. I know that I know that Tampa's played a lot of hockey over the past couple of years, but what are we doing here? What are we talking about? Like, they're still like they got by the Leafs, and they did look sluggish in that. The Leafs kind of dropped the ball. Vasilevsky wasn't playing great. Kucherov was not a factor. They came back and won that series from experience, I think, alone. We can laugh about that all we want, experience, but I think it played a factor, especially played a factor in Game 7, a team that's been there before. Then they just swept the Florida Panthers easily, got by the Panthers. Nobody really saw that coming. To beat them in 4, I don't think anybody saw that coming. Then they were down 2-0 against the Rangers, and everyone was just writing them off as well. Now that's it. They played a lot of hockey in the offseason. They're done. No Braden Point. They can't get it done. Yeah, they're playing good 5-5, but that's it. All it really was for the Lightning in that series was to stay the hell out of the penalty box. That's really the only offense that the New York Rangers generated in that entire series was on the power play. That's it. Like, they had moments at 5-5, but the last 4 games, they were completely just shut down. That was it. I mean, you look at the series overall, we've already talked about it. We don't need to get into it too much. The shot attempts, the high danger chances, the expected goals, everything was in favor of Tampa. And then here we are just automatically saying, I think, that the Colorado Avalanche are just going to cruise by. I have some major concerns about the goaltending in Colorado. I really do. Yep. And we were just talking earlier about Vasilevsky. So just 800 minutes here of 5-5 play. He's got the .939 save percentage, a 1.81 goals against average, a 7.27 goals saved above average. The high danger save percentage is .917, and it's the best mark in the playoffs. Jake Ottinger had .927. He only played 7 games. Where is Kemper with some of these? Like, where is because Kemper's starting. We talked about Francouz, but Kemper's starting. Kemper has a .908 save percentage at 5-5. It's okay. It's fine. It's not Vasilevsky .939.
He's a good goalie.
He's a good goalie. A 2.38 goals against average. He's not. His goals saved above average is negative -2.49. His high danger save percentage is .800. There's a massive difference here between the goalies. And I think we could say that Vasilevsky's faced some tougher opponents throughout the playoffs. I mean, not too many shots fired guys at the Blues and your Preds and the Oilers. Obviously, what they can do offensively, we know. Connor McDavid, we know. Leon Draisaitl wasn't 100%. But Vasilevsky went through the Leafs, went through the highest scoring team in the NHL that we've seen since 1995 in the Florida Panthers, and gave up 3 goals, and then gave up nothing at 5-5 in the last 4 or 5 games of the series against the Rangers. That is a significant, it's not just an edge, it's a significant edge that the Bolts have.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this for 3 years, and I was looking at awards and some of the odds. I think Makar definitely, is someone that could win it.
Let's bring up the Conn Smythe there, George.
Conn Smythe. I'm seeing Andre Vasilevsky at +400. Like, that seems like kind of a no-brainer to me.
Well, if you think they're going to win, he probably gets it, right? So instead of betting the Tampa Bay Lightning, like I see some people in here that are in on the Lightning, and I mean, I'm not hating it. I kind of think that's where I lean as well. Dustin, Tampa to win the series +160. Let's roll. Why not take Vasilevsky to win the Conn Smythe at 4-1? Like, take that bet too if you want. But if they win, he's going to face
pressure, right?
Yeah.
Like, if they win, it's not going to be easy, and they're going to have to rely on, Colorado is going to shoot the puck. McKinnon is going to be an absolute beast. Rantanen, Landeskog. Look at, I understand that Kadri's out, but they've got a bunch of other good players. My boy Valerie Nichushkin is having a good playoffs. JT Compher has been noticeable. Lehkonen has been a really good pickup for them. He plays all over the place and now is playing up in the top 6. Yeah, I'm also seeing Steven Stamkos at +1,500. I mean, if he has an unbelievable series, he could win the Conn Smythe too. He's been scoring at an insane rate, right? Like last year, we thought, maybe Stamkos is winding down, and here he is, ripping one-timers and just being physical, fighting. Like he's been everything for. He's might be their most valuable player right now, and he could easily win the Conn Smythe. And if you're asking me to put a few bucks down at +1,500 on Steven Stamkos, if he has an unbelievable series, if he scores, say he scores 5 or 6 goals during this series, he's going to win the Conn Smythe.
Yeah, he had 5 goals and 7 points in the series against the Rangers. He's had 9 goals and 15 points here in the playoffs. And you're right. I mean, I kind of counted this guy out. I thought he was slowing down. 42 goals and 106 points in the regular season. The guy is just an absolute monster and certainly a sniper. I'm looking at this list. So I agree. I think Vasilevsky is the best value on the board. I do agree with the odds. Like Cale Makar, man, he's just been terrific and he's going to play a lot. And McKinnon's going to have to deal with Victor Hedman. I can just get into that in just a little bit. But I think if you believe that Tampa's going to win this series, and I agree, Dustin, Kucherov could certainly go off. Absolutely. I think that if they win, it's most likely because of Vasilevsky. I don't feel like they're going to get into big shootouts where it's like 6-5. I'm sure there's going to be a couple games like that where Vasilevsky looks off. The Avs just have so much firepower. They could have a couple games where they're scoring goals. There could be some adjustment periods for sure on Tampa's side, like they adjusted against the Rangers after the first couple of games. But I just don't like. I could see Kucherov and Stammer going off like that, but I think ultimately, if Tampa wins this series, it is because of Vasilevsky. Let's bring that up one more time. Like I would probably throw pizza money on Stamkos. Oh man, like maybe Kemper. Like at 40-1, maybe Kemper. Like maybe he's just. We know that he's a good goalie. Right? Yep. He is a good goalie. Health has been an issue for him. He's had really good moments this season and good moments in Arizona.
Conn Smythe with not playing in that last, most of that last series.
But it's all about this series though. Like they kind of just forget about what has happened. It's all about this moment and this round. So you kind of just Lekkonen's had moments, Nichushkin's had moments. All these guys have had moments. I mean, heck,
Kadri's had moments.
Yeah, they've all had Perry. Like, they've all had... Palat has 11 points in his last 12 games. He's been fantastic. He was great in that series against the Rangers. But if you just...
He's the difference maker.
Yeah, for sure. If you just kind of... What happened has already happened. Those 3 rounds. It's all about right now, the Stanley Cup Finals. If Kemper steals a couple games and kind of just goes almost toe-to-toe with Vasilevsky, but they find a way to win the series, and it's not super high-powered offensively where it's 6-5 games, and we got a couple 3-2 games, we got a couple 2-1s, and oh my God, Kemper's got 240 save games, 40-1? I mean, a couple bucks on that, right? I mean, I think it's a decent long shot as well. Even though we just talked for 10 minutes about a massive edge in goal, I don't think either one of us would be shocked if Kemper had if he stole a couple games in this series. That's all I'm going to say.
Nope, he could come back. I mean, what worries me is him getting hurt and not playing. I think,
it is a huge risk.
Out of any position in hockey, repetitions in goal is the most important, and rhythm, and like you hear about it a lot of times. Goalies like to get hit with the puck early in a game to feel the puck and get into a rhythm. Some goalies, I know Pecorino was like this for a while. He kind of switched his style later in his career, but early on in his career, like if he didn't get 30 shots, he was off. Like he wanted to field shots. He wanted to be part of the play. He wanted to handle the puck. I think it was Marty Biron on the ESPN broadcast was talking about, like, if you get a chance as a goalie to get back at, behind the net and play the puck with your stick, it just was something about feeling that you're part of the play and feeling the puck and feeling the weight of the puck and shooting it around. And I don't look at goalie as voodoo. I've tried it several times in my life. It's gone very poorly. In my opinion, I've played almost every competitive team sport that's known. All of them. I'm not good at any of them. I was pretty good at rugby, but that was about it. Playing goal in ice hockey is the hardest position in sports. I don't care what anybody says. It's the hardest position in sports. The size of the puck, the size of the net, the fact that you're on skates, the fact that you have to be mentally engaged for 60 straight minutes. The second that you're not, the puck is going to go past you. I'm talking from experience. This is a person that played open hockey 2 or 3 times a week and was tired of only one goalie showing up. So I think I do my best work when I get drunk and get on Amazon late at night. And I bought an entire set of goalie equipment that I haven't touched in about 4 or 5 years. It's in my garage. And I will take both sets of equipment to open hockey. And if one of the goalies if only one goalie shows up, I would play net. And when I say play net, I would put the equipment on and stand there, and then the puck would go past me. But dude, it is impossible. And I think that's going to be a really telling first game narrative. Is what kind of Kemper do we get? Is he refreshed? Is he healed up? Is he ready to do it? I can say like having that mental break and no stress of playing could be an advantage for him, but not feeling the puck and not being in game rhythm at all for over, it's going to be almost 2 weeks before he's played since the last time he's played. So, right. And he could practice is not the same, game speed, especially in the playoffs, both teams are going to be flying. So that's going to be something that I really, really watch. And now the more I'm looking at this, man, I'm telling you, Steven Stamkos to win the Conn Smythe that's juicy to me.
It is juicy. I do want to throw that those odds for Braden Point also pretty juicy. I know a lot would have to work out in his favor, but like a buck or two on something like that. Sports by Tampa Bay Times. So Tampa Bay Times _sports on the Twitter machine. It tweeted last night, so 16 hours ago. No new status update on Braden Point, but he is on the ice longer by the day. And then CBC, Hockey Night in Canada. Shout out to those north of the border. I'm sure, obviously, you're very familiar with Hockey Night in Canada. It tweeted out, this was yesterday, the Tampa Bay Lightning forward Braden Point in line to make his return to the Stanley Cup Final. So it's really looking like he's going to be good to go. Whether it's Wednesday or Saturday, I expect to see him in the finals, right? What a boost. And I can't say the same thing for Kadri. I know that people think in Colorado, like, clearly Kadri wants to play, and this guy is tough as hell, and he's played through so many battles. But, like, I've played goalie too. It's very tough. I played as a younger kid. Nobody wanted to play in net. I went in net, and I was like, this is kind of boring. Nobody can pick the puck off the ice. I'm just laying there stacking the pads all the time. Like, I'd see, like, Ranford and Wall when I was a kid, like, stacking pads, and that's what I was doing out there. And I was like, get me out of here. I need to get out there and try to score some goals. What also is very tough is to grip a hockey stick and shoot it with a broken thumb. Like, I know that he had surgery. But all the doctors, all the reporters, Darren Dreger, very unlikely to play for the remainder of the playoffs. I know he's had a couple weeks off here. We're talking about the Avs, like 9 days off, like more days off between series than games played potentially throughout the playoffs. Like they've cruised through. We've talked about that at length here. But he could go out there and skate and throw his body around. But how effective is this guy going to be taking a face-off in the circle? Probably not very effective. He's been the guy in the bumper on the power play all year long. Couple of years now he's been on that first power play. He's had a heck of a season and a great playoff. I'm sure we see him at some point, EY, but he's not going to be, I don't think he's going to be that effective, man. And that, I saw somebody write it out. I don't know. It was Daniel H. Kadri and Point being in or out could be the X factor for either or both teams. Like we're looking at Point returning, and that's a boost. And we're looking at Kadri just very questionable. And that's kind of a negative.
Yeah, big time negative. I mean, having your number two, a guy that plays on your number one power play, obviously huge in the faceoff dot, a physical presence, a guy that obviously gets under a guy's skin. He's really, really difficult to play against because he can skate, he can get to all those areas. He's not afraid to go anywhere. He's not a huge guy, but he's strong. He's physical. He's a tough player, but playing hockey with a broken thumb or whatever the thumb injury is. He had surgery. We all know that. Gripping a stick, shooting, lifting a stick, pulling it back on a faceoff with a messed up thumb. It's not hard. It's impossible. Like you can be tough and you can get put on your skates and go out there. But even if he plays, he's not going to be effective. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what he says. If he plays, and I don't think he will, I think that they'll be smart enough and he'll be not selfish and realize that he cannot help this team and they're better off to have it somebody else playing for a guy that has a messed up thumb. It's a huge, huge loss for Colorado, but it's the mobility of this team and the overall team speed. I would say Tampa saw some good team speed in New York, but I don't think
I agree
that they're ready for the aggressive play style and the speed. Like, I mean, Belmar, like that, Oban Cabell, like he's insane. he's so fast as a player. Like,
Yeah.
No, nobody even knows who I'm talking about or cares. But
I love that you just brought him up. Yeah, but you're not wrong.
Every person on this team can skate, and
Yeah.
it's going to be a headache for Tampa. They're going to have to flip a switch and be aggressive. They are not going to be able to sit back like they did with other teams in the playoffs.
Let's get into some serious props here, George. So we kind of went through Conn Smythe. I like Vasilevsky. We took him on this show. I took him when I mentioned to you when they were down 2-1 at plus 850. I said, now's the time. Lightning, why not? Like a couple bucks. Like you're never going to get better odds than this. So Vasilevsky for me at 8-1. I still think there's value at 4-1. We mentioned Stamkos at 15-1, and I will throw a buck or two on Kemper. I like what Mark was saying. Like he had a really good regular season. He hasn't been good here in the playoffs. It's possible he could maybe, if this is a low scoring series, which it could be with Vasilevsky on the other side, and if Colorado finds a way to win it, maybe Kemper could be that guy. Let's go to goal scoring leaders, George. This is from PointsBet.ca. So Rantanen's up at the top with McKinnon at plus 550. We got Stamkos at 750, Kucherov at 7-1, Landeskog at 8-1, Point 9-1, and Kadri. So those two are just kind of sandwiched together. I think there's value there with your boy Nichushkin at 15-1. I think there's value there with Palat at 20-1. And I don't know if you're looking for a long shot. I mean, Artturi Lehkonen at 35-1. Back-to-back years, he scored the overtime winning goal in the third round to put his team in the Stanley Cup Finals. He did it last year with the Canadiens against Vegas in Game 6, and he did it in the last round against the Oilers. And you saw Nathan McKinnon. I don't know if you heard the quote from him. He said he would give up 10 first-round picks for Artturi Lehkonen. He loves the way he plays that much. And, yeah, man, he has looked really good. So I think maybe a little sprinkle, 35-1. But ultimately, I'm looking at Stamkos. I'm looking at Kucherov, and I'm looking at McKinnon. I'm looking at the studs here.
Yeah, all NHL teams were just put on blast, praying to God that McKinnon doesn't become a GM later in life.
I know, right?
I know what he's saying, and it's a figure
Yeah.
of speech, but good Lord, man. Like,
Settle down, yeah.
Artturi Lehkonen is a great player for sure, but 10 first round picks, you're buckling your entire franchise. But I know it's just a figure of speech, but it's fun to think about. Goal scoring again. I mean, looking at that plus 750 for Stamkos, dude. Like, I mean, he's been so good. Right now, Kucherov has been good, but Stamkos has been the best offensive player for the Tampa Bay Lightning, I think, all through the playoffs. And then I know it's a stretch, but Nick Paul was leading this team in scoring at plus 5,000. Like,
it's worth a sprinkle, yeah.
It's worth a sprinkle.
Yeah.
If I'm going to bet, and I'm betting Stamkos to be the goal scoring leader.
I think Cale Makar is interesting there at 25-1 as well. George, let's switch over to points. We got this over at PointsBet.ca as well. So McKinnon and Kucherov at 4-1, Makar at 5-1, Rantanen 6-1, Stammer and Landeskog at 8-1. I think Hedman is interesting at 12-1. And then you see Nichushkin again at 40-1. The guy that stands out here on the board, of course, Artturi Lehkonen. I mean, those odds are crazy. Again, we just talked about him. He's been playing on that top line. He could stick on that top line with Nate McKinnon. Pretty good right there. Good value for Artturi Lehkonen. And then I'll throw Palat again one more time. It's another guy playing on the top line, playing with Kucherov. We expect Point to come back. I do expect it to be Point, Kucherov, and Palat. Palat's got 11 points in his last 12 games. I think at that price, what was it, 50-1? I think a little sprinkle in there as well for Andre Palat to potentially lead the series in points. How about the odds for Kucherov scoring a goal in every game or McKinnon scoring a goal in every game? I didn't see anything like that. I would take, worth a sprinkle for sure. I mean, those guys are absolutely game changers. They could score. Yep. It could be a short series, a 4-game. It could be a sweep. I don't expect it to, but obviously if it goes 7, you're in a tough spot there. But those odds, Vladimir, are pretty good. I would lean Kucherov more so than McKinnon. I know he's a bit of a pass-first guy, but I think he's got the slighter, better matchup. I know he's going to have to go against Cale Makar too. But, somebody we haven't really talked a lot about is Hedman. Hedman, to me, like Cale Makar is getting all the headlines, and rightfully so. He's terrific. He gets a lot of ice time. He's a great skater. He's good offensively. He's good defensively. But Victor Hedman is an absolute game changer. What that guy does and what he's done over the past couple years in the playoffs, we've heard Patrick Kane, when the Hawks and the Lightning played in the Stanley Cup Finals, I think 2015, Kane said that Hedman was the best player he's ever played against, and he was just a young buck then. The long reach that he has, he may give McKinnon fits. Like, it could be the second line for Colorado that we need to attack from a daily standpoint, from looking at point props. I know Kadri potentially out, but yeah, Rantanen, second line center. Lehkonen, maybe they get Lehkonen away from McKinnon. That would benefit him a little bit. Maybe Landeskog's on that second line. Like, Colorado's they've done some things with their first line a little bit. It could be McKinnon, Lehkonen, and Nichushkin, and then Rantanen on that second line with Landeskog. And if that's the case, like, that second line will be the line that I would like to attack, like Landeskog and Rantanen, getting away from Hedman, because I would imagine every time McKinnon is on the ice, Hedman is on the ice. So it's something to consider as well, something to think about. Let's get into calling this series. George, we have the series props. We just ran through the series props. We have the ultimate series total there, plus 155. You can get plus 160 in some spots for Tampa Bay, and then Colorado minus 180. And then into game one, the Avs, of course, are favored on home ice, minus 165. We just talked earlier that you could get 6.5, under 6.5, minus 130. I'll let you go. Give me a prediction for the series, how many games, and then who wins game one.
Yeah, I'm going to go 6 games. I think Tampa Bay is going to win game one, but I think it's going to be real close. I think we could even see an overtime game. I think Tampa wins the first game, but I think it's going to be 6, and I think Colorado wins it. That's my heart. My analytical brain is saying Tampa, but if I'm betting, I'm betting that Colorado's going to win this.
Okay. I'm going to take Tampa. My goodness. My heart says Colorado too. I would like to see a different team win the cup. I'm kind of sick of Tampa, although I do respect what they're doing. Like you said, we haven't seen this in a long, long time, since the mid-'80s, and we may never see it again. What we were seeing is really special in a salary cap era. They've gone through some things. Like the one season, they had no Kucherov for the entire regular season. Didn't miss a beat in the playoffs. I know people say they cheated, $17 million over the cap. They found a loophole. Other teams do it as well. Vasilevsky's been so strong. I do believe this series will go 7. I got Tampa to win in 7. I think there's some props here, like series correct score. You know, if you go Lightning in 4-3, that's plus 650. If you go Lightning, 4 games to 2, that's plus 600. Series spread, this is not great odds, but Tampa plus 1.5. So, to go 7 minus 130. But then you could also just bet straight up, I think this series is going to go 7 games, and you can get plus 210. I think my 2 favorite bets, honestly, would just be a little sprinkle on the series to go 6 games at plus 210, and a little sprinkle on the series to go 7 games at plus 210. I do believe it will go the distance. For game one, I like what Adam was saying, under 6.5. I think, with how strong Vasilevsky's played, it may be a little bit of a feel-out process of these two teams, going toe-to-toe. I think the under 6.5 is the way I'm going to lean, and I'm kind of with you. I think Tampa wins the opening game on the road. They've been playing consistently, steady. They feel like they're I feel like they're in a hell of a groove, man. What they have done at 5-5 is great. And no team has allowed fewer shots than Colorado, and no team has had more shot attempts than Colorado at 5-5. So it really will be a nice test, like a back and forth. Like one team has been really stingy. Actually, both.
You could talk yourself into either thing. Right?
You can, can't you? Yeah, you really can. I'm going to lean with Tampa. Here. The series going 7. That's kind of where I'm at. Any final thoughts out of you? I mean, we haven't really looked at game 1 props, and we won't be here for game 1. We'll be here on Thursday to recap game 1 and to get into game 2. But call a goal or two. What do you think? I mean, Stamkos has been on your brain. I feel like he's scoring for you in game.
Yeah, if I was to guess right now, goal scorers, we don't know if Point's going to play. We don't really know the lineup. It could look very different come to tomorrow afternoon. But looking at it right now, Stamkos, I'm seeing at plus 165. I love that. Palat at plus 215. I love Lehkonen. Because we know Kadri's not going to play in the first game. If Rantanen plays center, someone was just saying it in the chat here. who was saying
Yeah, Adam. If Kadri is out and they play
Rantanen
Rantanen at center, Lehkonen
could eat for sure. So I love him to score in the first game, plus 275. So, and if I was going to bet, anyone to score, I'm going to bet Nathan MacKinnon. I mean, you hear all this stuff over the last couple of years. I just heard an interview with Matt Calvert, who's a sports agent now, saying like nobody is more competitive than Nathan MacKinnon. Like, and you can see it in the way he plays and the way he skates and the way he moves. Like, he's an animal, and seeing that interview where he's like, oh, you won this and you won that. And he's like, I haven't won shit.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I want him to win so bad. I want him to play on my hockey team. I want him to be my captain. I want him to be the guy, and if I'm betting on somebody from Colorado to score, it's going to be him. I like Rantanen to score as well. Obviously, the big goal is Kucherov, but Stamkos, I think, is almost a no-brainer. Palat has been feeling it lately, and I love the momentum that he's carrying in. But I like Lehkonen. Even someone like Cirelli, who's played unbelievable, is playing a ton. Maybe a small sprinkle on Paul. And maybe JT Comfort could be interesting. But if I'm betting on somebody to score, it's going to be Stamkos, and it's going to be MacKinnon and Lehkonen.
Daniel H., it's a good point to bring up Hedman Chernak. Chernak's gone through so much here throughout the playoffs. He's been in and out. Man, what a warrior. And then Hedman suffered that injury, but I think he's fine. I'm just assuming he's fine. It's the playoffs. Everybody's kind of dealing with something. For tomorrow, I do like Hedman for a point at minus 135. I like Palat for a point at minus 120. He's got 11 points in his last 12 games. I like Lehkonen for a point as well. He's plus 105 for shots. Over at FanDuel, you can do 2 shots, all these guys, and we've been kind of hammering Palat and Cirelli. We do got to get out of here, but Cirelli at 1.5 shots, Palat at 1.5 shots. Those are two guys that I like. Hedman at 2.5 shots. I think he's going to be a factor in this series. And then Nate MacKinnon at 4.5 shots. I think it's a lot, but he's going to be fired up on home ice, is the quote that you just said as well. We got a whole lot more in our FTN Bet Tracker. We'll be with you throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. A little bit later on, Troy, I know you're not in the house live, but I know you're going to watch. A little bit later on in the Stanley Cup Finals, we will roll through season way too early fantasy hockey rankings for next season. Way too early, but we're psychos. We'll get you set up in your keeper in your dynasty leagues. We'll take a look at the top 10 defensemen, left wing, right wing, center, goalies, and help you get set up, and maybe take a look at some unrestricted free agents towards the end of the Stanley Cup Finals. We got some great guests lined up for a couple of the remaining episodes, especially
Thursday's going to be a doozy, boys. We got the white whale coming in.
Oh, baby. Let's go. Should be a good one. Thanks, guys, for taking the time to hang out. FTNBets.com, promo code Meaney, promo code NHL. Save yourself a little bit of cash. You'll get all the picks across all the sports over at FTN. Tools, projections, Discord channel, all that good stuff. From EY, George, myself, Chris Meaney, enjoy game 1, and we'll be back on Thursday. Cheers.